And tonight, disturbing surveillance video showing the murder of South Florida rapper XXXTentacion and the moments leading up to it.
From rising to the top in no time to being brutally murdered, Jose Dwayne Ricardo Onfroy, better known as XXXTentacion, was shot and killed during an armed robbery. Two men ambushed him and opened fire, leaving him fatally wounded.
All units respond immediately to Riva Motorsports, Deerfield Beach. Multiple gunshots reported. Victim currently unidentified. Suspects fled the scene in a dark SUV. Possible armed robbery. Proceed with caution.
Roger that. Dispatch. Arriving on scene. Preparing to engage if necessary. Over and out.
June 18th, 2018. Police arrive at Riva Motorsports, responding to reports of a shooting. Inside a black BMW i8, they find the body of a young star. Lifeless. But before the gunshots, before the chaos, there was a story. Let's rewind time to see how it all began. And later we'll come back to uncover how it all ended. The year was 2013. X was surrounded by violence and a difficult life. His only escape from reality was music. From a young age, he had shown a strong interest in sound and rhythm. Deeply inspired by hip-hop legends, X had a clear vision when it came to music. At just 6 years old, X stabbed a man who was assaulting his mother. A moment that shows us the kind of darkness he was surrounded by from an early age. From the very beginning, X was raised in chaos.
Basically, a nigga tried to put his hands on my mom type shit.
And you were how young?
I was like 6.
And you stabbed him?
And
with what?
I bit his flesh out and like grabbed the glass shard and like poked him with it type shit, like stabbed him with it.
X spent a big part of his childhood living with his father, a man who shared the same name as him, Dwayne Ricardo Onfroy. Dwayne loved him, and they lived together along with Dwayne's girlfriend. He tried to provide for X, giving him everything he needed as a kid. But most of that money came from selling drugs and performing music on the streets. In 2008, everything changed. He met a man who wanted to buy marijuana. But that man was actually a DEA agent. They had agreed to sell 800 pounds of weed, but it was a setup, a police operation that brought it all crashing down. Dwayne was arrested and later sentenced to 9 years in prison for drug trafficking and money laundering. He was a key figure in X's life. He couldn't always be there, but he gave X stability and love. As if everything going on in X's life wasn't already too much, tragedy and chaos were a part of his everyday reality. At Margate Middle School, X was always different. He didn't fit in, he didn't try to. He had only a few friends, but he was respected or feared. Never afraid to stand up to bullies, never afraid to fight. Outside of school, one of the few people he spent time with was his uncle, a man who struggled with severe depression and panic attacks that would come out of nowhere. Sometimes, those attacks would make him turn against X, lashing out in bursts of anger and confusion. Then came the moment that changed everything. X was only 6 years old, coming home from school. He opened the door and saw his uncle's cold, lifeless body hanging from the balcony. That image would stay with him forever. Jose spent a lot of time with his aunt, whenever his mother couldn't take care of him. With his father absent, his mom would leave him in his aunt's care. His aunt began to notice something. Jose had a growing interest in music, and to pull him away from the troubles and constant fights he was getting into, she convinced him to join the church choir. There, X played the drums and sang alongside the other members. But one day, during a performance, Jase snapped. He attacked another choir member with his drumsticks, saying the boy had been bugging him over and over. And that's how X spent most of his childhood, going back and forth between his mother's home and his aunt's care.
You gotta go through it. I feel what you're saying, don't get me wrong, but you have to go through it. I can tell you can go get raped, and I can tell you suck it up. But every night you go to sleep and you remember what you seen, and you remember how it felt, you remember that horrible feeling in your soul. Nobody can comfort you.
I know how it feels to be alone. I know how it feels to be around people and feel alone. Like, I'll be around a million people and I'll like still feel alone.
Getting into trouble whenever he could, from constant fights to conflicts at school. By the time he was ready to move on to high school, things had already taken a turn. He had been expelled from Margate Middle School and was now attending Lauderdale Lakes Middle School. But during this time, his mother made it official. She kicked him out of the house. Jase began drifting homeless. He would later describe this period as one of the darkest times of his life.
Me and my mom went through it hard. Like, my mom was just in situations where she couldn't take care of me. She was in a situation where like she wanted me around, but she couldn't afford to. FaceTime. Do it. Hi, princess. You look beautiful. What are you talking about? So what she did was she passed me from hand to hand to people that could take care of me, you know? Doing that, like, I was put in situations that weren't the best, but I get what she was doing, so I don't resent her. I would never resent my mom.
And she was doing everything she could, and I ain't even finna dub my mom. Like, I love my mom to death. That's the apple in my eye. I'll take a bullet from my mom. Any day you take a bullet from my mom right now, no questions asked.
Though his love for his mother never faded, X's path would lead him toward the next chapter of his life. X would go on to live with his grandmother.
What's up, Carl? I want that.
I said,
What's up? Run that.
A deeply religious woman who resided in the Isles of Inverary, a community known for its high rates of drug dealing and gang activity. Jase would spend his days in this neighborhood, meeting people and making friends, many of them older than him. His grandmother had a strict rule. If he wasn't home by nightfall, he would not be allowed inside, forcing him to spend the night on the streets or at a friend's place. During this stage of his life, Jase felt incredibly alone. He began smoking marijuana on a daily basis and started both using and drug dealing pills like Xanax and Vicodin. X spent his days searching for a place to sleep and trying to forget the problems that surrounded his life. Everything in Jase's life seemed to be falling apart, but the worst was yet to come. In 2012, at just 14 years old, X was arrested one night, caught with 21 grams of marijuana. He was indicted and shortly after charged with a felony.
And what did you go in for that time?
Fuck. Armed robbery.
Armed robbery. What was that like?
No, it was gonna keep going.
Okay, yeah.
Armed robbery, armed burglary, possession of a firearm, armed burglary with dwelling, resisting without violence, grand theft of 3 charges.
Yeah, he got a lot of charges.
Possession of oxycodone. And this is not me being cool. This is not me saying this shit is okay. Yeah, we don't condone this shit. I was just fucking up.
Jase was sentenced to 1 month in juvenile detention and a mandatory 6 months in a behavioral correction facility. Inside that facility, Jase would meet another troubled teen, Stokely Goulburn, later known as Ski Mask, the Slump God. The two bonded quickly, rapping together and sharing their passion for music. By the time he turned 15, Jase had served his sentence and was finally released in 2013. But with only 1 month after being released, X would get into trouble again. He joined others in stealing laptops and iPads, and was quickly detained once more. At the same time, Stokely was also arrested, facing drug charges. Stokely attended Piper High School, the same school that X would go to after being released. While locked up, the two would talk about how they wanted to make money, and would joke around about making music and rapping together. But those jokes soon became reality. Not long after, they would form a group with another close friend, Aaron. Aaron owned a simple snowball microphone and a basic laptop, enough for them to start recording their first tracks.
And it was on like a snowball mic, like one of the worst mics you could really buy, and it was in a closet, and it was really like bad quality, but we used to work off the bad quality and like the distortion of music. That's what we used to use it to our favor.
As a group, they wanted to make songs, but first they needed a name. Stokely stuck with Ski Mask, the Slump God, while Yase kept hesitating, torn between different options. At first, he leaned toward the name Master Splinter, but eventually he shifted to something far more powerful, a word that embodied temptation itself. From then on, the world would come to know him as XXXTentacion.
Jose Onfroy was weak. X is the complete opposite. X desires control, controversy. X has desires. Jose Onfroy had no desires. XXXTentacion means unknown temptation. For some time, the X was the only unknown numeral to me. So temptation is, Tentacion is temptation in Latin. So I actually just pushed the two together in unknown temptation because I feel as if that's what my life revolves around.
With a name that would go down in history, and a group now formed, Jase began dedicating more time to music, leaving behind the constant fights and violence that surrounded his life. The very first song they would compose as a group was Palm Trees. They skipped class one day, sneaking into the computer lab to record. They got inside without anyone noticing and began working on their first track. X's voice sounds a bit distant, since he was standing farther from the microphone. If you listen carefully, you can hear the door open as a teacher enters the lab. But chooses to say nothing as they keep recording. Inside that room, the group laid down their first track, recorded right there in school. Immediately after recording their first track, X created a SoundCloud account to start sharing music. He began diving deeper into the world of music, experimenting with programs like Audacity and FL Studio. Although Palm Trees was the first track to feature X, it wouldn't be until News Flock that he would upload his first solo track. Over time, Jase began creating more and more tracks. X dedicated countless hours to music and took the group very seriously. He continued uploading songs to SoundCloud, though often he would delete them shortly after. Unfortunately, the group wouldn't last. Tensions rose, and after a fight between X and one of its members, Nyora, everything fell apart.
As of right now, nobody's in very rare except me. Deadass.
Who the fuck is Norris Mouth? You put this nigga on tracks every fucking time. Trash ass, nigga, just stop, man.
X and Ski Mask decided to form a new group, which they named Members Only. At the beginning, it was just the two of them. In 2015, they released their very first project, Members Only Volume 1, a collection of tracks with a dark, almost gothic sound. After that first release, they began recruiting new members. They searched within the local hood and the South Florida hip-hop scene. For Yase, it didn't matter if someone could sing perfectly. As long as they could bring something unique to the table, they were welcome. Soon, they started performing at small shows and house parties, slowly building a name for themselves, and gaining followers with a style that stood apart from anything other groups were doing at the time.
And their favorite artist, their idol, their hero, all of that. A lot of kids lost way more than their favorite artist. And obviously everybody was hurt, but the perspective I looked at it is like, bro, this is a universal loss.
6 months after releasing their first mixtape, Members Only Volume 2 would be published to the world. This time, featuring more artists like Flyboy Tarantino and Fuck It. The group began gaining more and more recognition, not only for their music, but also for constantly starting fights. One of those fights involving Jase was filmed and later published on World Star Hip Hop. This type of behavior would ultimately get X expelled from Piper High School. The same attitude that once made his life more difficult was now giving him notoriety as the leader of a group, bringing even more attention to members only. With X at the front, members only seemed destined for greatness. They began earning money from their shows and gaining more and more recognition. In Florida, people would say their style was so infectious that soon other groups began to imitate not only their sound, but also their appearance. At the same time, new members continued to join the group. What had started with just X and Ski Mask was now becoming a movement. A collective that kept growing, expanding its influence far beyond their local scene. But while members only was rising, X was also beginning to carve out his own path. By the end of 2015, X would cross paths with a producer named Rojas.
Ese beat era para una pista que se llamaba Wedge. Ok, so esa pista ya estaba hecha. Después yo estaba un día así con X y yo estaba poniendo pistas y ya yo llegué a la última y esa fue el acabó.
One day, Rojas played Jase, some of the beats he had prepared, but none of them truly convinced X. Finally, they reached the last beat, a track originally made for another artist named Wretch, who at the time was locked up. When Jase heard it, he instantly connected. Within just 15 minutes, X began to improvise and record. That session gave birth to the track that would turn him viral. The single he would call Look at Me.
And I mean, do you remember the first time you heard Look at Me?
I was astonished, I was like, shit, this shit fire. And then, a couple days later, this shit just blew the fuck up. He fucked their head up. Yeah, exactly. That's my brother right there. Fuck your head up.
After Look at Me was released, everything began to change in X's life. It instantly became his most streamed song, gathering millions of plays on both YouTube and SoundCloud. Every single day, hundreds of thousands of new followers flocked to his social media, turning Jase into one of the most talked about names online. But while X was gaining traction and rising to the top, the police were quietly building a case against him. They had begun an investigation into crimes committed back in 2015, and soon they would charge him with robbery and assault, preparing to send him behind bars.
He was speaking with friends after being arrested for domestic battery on his pregnant girlfriend.
Now we're hearing more of that conversation. Local 10's Todd Tongan is live with more.
After being accused of domestic violence, X was taken to prison. His ex-girlfriend, Geneva, with whom he had lived for nearly a year, filed the accusations against him. At first, their relationship had seemed perfect, but as X later admitted, he met her during one of the darkest moments of his life. He was depressed, lost, and struggling.
I lived with my ex for almost a year. I think so. And I was literally going insane, and she was my safe haven. I would go to her, and in the very beginning, it was perfect. You feel me? She was what I wanted. She was everything for me.
Once in prison, X would spend months locked up before reaching a deal for house arrest. But when he was finally released, things with Geneva only got worse. She confessed to cheating on him, and their violent confrontations led to new allegations. X pleaded not guilty.
I didn't beat her, nor do I give a fuck about who beat her at this time, because now I know she's an evil bitch. There's a story.
Yet ended up spending more time behind bars for violating house arrest. Still, while X was stuck behind bars, his name was spreading everywhere. The allegations combined with his sudden beef with Drake only fueled the fire. When Drake released his track KMT, fans immediately noticed the flow sounded strikingly similar to Look at Me.
Because people said that Look at Me kind of had the same flow that Drake used on that one song.
Yeah, Drake stole my dog flow. You know what he did.
So you think that Drake actually took that flow?
Duh. Facts.
This controversy pushed X even further into the spotlight. By the time he was released, X began to capitalize on the Drake feud, giving interviews and preparing his debut mixtape, Revenge, a collection of re-released songs. In June, Members Only Volume 3 also dropped, cementing the group's influence. Throughout 2017, X released more music, using all the attention to grow both musically and spiritually. And when his album 17 finally dropped, it marked a new chapter in his career. X gained millions of new followers. Any doubts about him being a one-hit wonder disappeared. Major artists began to recognize his talent and give him the credit he deserved.
I knew it wasn't about no fucking redemption, bro.
Love you, bro.
Even though X was going through dark times, he always showed love to his fans. By then, he was already considered the voice of a new generation. In December of that same year, he released the A Ghetto Christmas Carol EP. Around the same time, his team presented a document signed by Geneva, stating she wanted to drop the charges, but the request was denied. While on house arrest, waiting for trial, X was allowed to go to the studio. He began preaching a more positive lifestyle, letting his fans know he was there for them. On his YouTube channel, he uploaded videos of himself helping others, donating to schools, and spreading a message of hope. He even released a song titled Hope, dedicated to the survivors of the school shootings. During this time, X recorded his second album, simply called Question Mark. Released in March 2018, it would later become the most streamed hip-hop album in the history of Spotify. But as his music reached unimaginable heights, dark clouds were already gathering over his life. Soon, the world would witness the tragedy that cut his story short.
I think X got shot. I think X got shot.
You said what?
X got shot, bro. I think X got shot. Like, for real, I think X got shot, bro.
What you mean?
Yeah, deadass, bro. I think X got shot, bro.
The rapper XXXTentacion has been shot, apparently targeted while shopping for a motorcycle.
Search for a killer in South Florida after an up-and-coming rapper is shot dead. 20-year-old XXXTentacion killed in an apparent robbery.
Alright, let's say worst thing comes to worst, I fucking die a tragic death or some shit, and I'm not able to see out my dreams. I at least want to know that the kids perceived my message and were able to make something of themselves and able to take my message and use it and turn it into something positive and to at least have a good life. I at least, if I'm gonna die or ever be a sacrifice, I want to make sure that my life made at least 5 million kids happy.
Don't look at everything else as the problem. Look at yourself and see how you can change yourself to where nothing bothers you, to where you're unbothered about a lot of things, and to where life doesn't exactly affect you in that manner. It's changing your perception that kind of changed the world around you, because it's the small things that we don't appreciate. So in order to appreciate everything, you have to be very, very, very analytical. So in being analytical, you start to observe the world in a different manner. So even how you approach people, even how you move, even how you think. When you change the way you think, you change the way you perceive the world.
The slavery is not physical anymore, it's mental. As far as the New World Order has come in the shape of electronics. You know what I'm saying? Taking away your mind from what you want to apply it to. The mind is but a magnet to what you want. You know what I'm saying? The law of attraction, like all the laws of the universe, I studied all the laws of the universe, you know what I'm saying? And I fully apply that. I just wanted to spread peace, love, and positivity, and I want to say I apologize for not addressing it sooner. I want to say I apologize for not even being as good as that I know I can be, and I'm trying. I'm growing every day, and I'm trying to be the best that I can. And I want you guys to know that beyond all else, you can have an amazing career. You can have the amazing career. You can have the most money. You can have all of these things. But if you're not growing as a person, if you can't look at yourself and consider yourself a good person, and you can't be satisfied with yourself, what are you really?
Every day you create in thought,
you evolve in mind, you evolve as far as your age, you evolve physically, mentally. If you are evoluting physically and you are not evoluting mentally, you are not doing the right thing. You are the actor in your own movie. You get what I'm saying? And you are the person that you desire to be. There was a point where I wanted to be the villain, and it's not fun, bro. It's not fun. People it doesn't attract anything that you truly want. It's better to be respected through love rather than fear. It's better to you need to increase your self-love. You need to increase the amount of time that you spend with yourself. Get off of the cell phone, get off the fucking internet, be a person and learn how to love yourself, so that way we can end this cycle of destruction, we can end this cycle of hate, and we can start experiencing more love. And there will be more love in the streets, more genuine love, more genuine care for people. You can't care for someone if you don't love yourself, and really the world can be destroyed in that way. So the only way to
In just 20 years of life, X went from a troubled kid in Florida to one of the most influential voices of his generation. From recording songs in a small bedroom to becoming a global phenomenon with billions of streams. He transformed his pain into art, his struggles into messages of hope, and inspired millions of young people around the world. Through his short journey, X proved that no matter where you come from, you can leave a legacy. A legacy built on love, on growth, and on the courage to change. And even though his story was cut short, his voice still lives on, reminding us that it's never too late to become a better version of ourselves.